many of you have ever had preschoolers running around your house? Oh, good. Maybe you've had this experience. My wife and I have two sons, Dan and Ben, and they're grown men now. But when they were little boys, if we were standing in the kitchen and you heard the Sesame Street theme song come on the television in the living room, this is what happened. I'm getting the nods. You're exactly right. This is what would happen. They would, did you ever see like in a cartoon where a cartoon character is standing in one place and they go like this and suddenly there's a puff of smoke and then they appear right over here? You've seen that? That's how fast Danny and Ben would run into the living room because Sesame Street was on TV. Now why? Why is it so attractive to preschoolers? Well, if you watch Sesame Street as a preschooler, you're always going to learn something new. You're always going to be with your Muppet and your human friends. You're never, ever going to be made to feel bad or dumb, right? And after all, what kind of day is it going to be on Sesame Street? It's a sunny day, just like the song said. Can't you even hear the sunniness in it? Right? You feel it when you hear that theme song, right? I tried to capture that as the next quality that all strong, good leaders have. And that quality is they're optimistic. They have optimism. And I don't mean that they put on like rose-colored glasses and they pretend everything is great when it's not, because sometimes life is tough. Sometimes you got budget problems and personnel problems and all kinds of issues that you have to resolve. So I'm not saying that everything's always perfect. But what good leaders do is they have an attitude of optimism, that is, things are going to get better, we're going to have a good day at work, it's going to be a good year, things are going to work out, we're going to work together to make them work out. And not only am I optimistic about the day and the year as a leader, I'm optimistic about you. I'm optimistic about my employees. I see your potential. I have a belief in you that you can do excellent work, that you can be what you want to be, and that I'm going to help you get there. I'm optimistic about you also. And so for Sesame Street, I want to talk to you about another management function, and that is retention of employees. We talked about how to recruit the best employees. Now, how do you keep them? And to do that, let me ask you this. There's research on this about why employees stay on the job. Why do you think most employees choose, what's the deciding difference between staying and leaving? Anybody want to take a guess? I don't mind guesses just for the fun of it. Feeling valued, you're on the right track. Yeah, and we can put those two, yes, sir.
No sense of belonging.
A sense of belonging, also really important. Feeling valued, a sense of belonging by the manager. The manager who you report to is the number one factor that keeps people staying in a job or deciding to leave a job. This comes from a book by Buckingham and Kaufman, two researchers for the Gallup organization. They wrote a book called What the Great Managers Do Differently. And after they concluded that it was the manager, then the question was, well, what do the best managers do that keeps their employees? And that answer is a little more complicated because, don't you hate when people give you this answer? It depends. It does depend, but here's what it depends on. It depends on what the employee needs. The feeling of belonging, like this gentleman said. The feeling of being valued, like this lady said. The feeling of being respected. And different employees have different needs. Another researcher named Frederick Hertzberg discovered that, the kinds of things that people think is usually important, such as salary and benefits and working conditions, all of those are important. We're not saying they're not important. But the most important factor in whether a person remains with your organization is whether the employee finds meaning in their work. And meaning is largely dependent on how the manager treats them. Some people find meaning in their work because they need job security. Some people find meaning in their work because they need autonomy. Some people like to be entrepreneurial. Some people live for that interaction with the customer and that deep sense of customer satisfaction. People have all different kinds of needs that are met through work. And what's our job as leaders? To get to know all of our employees personally, to find out what do they need so we can help them. Some people are shooting for advancement. They want to be mentored. They want to be supported. There's an old management saying, you know, what gets measured gets done. Have you ever heard that? Right? So I want to add my 2 cents to that. I think what gets measured and supported gets done. Because when people feel supported in finding meaning in their work, you accomplish more than you ever dreamed. That's what I mean by being optimistic about your employees. Not just about the goals of the organization, that's very important, but about each person who works with you.